Well, hello there. This is Virtuoso Chess Noob learning and having fun with chess. Now, this video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to talk about a resource that I've been developing and working up to share with the community, which is the focus of this video and also the article that goes with it. But let me first ask you a question. What does the King's Gambit, Vienna Gambit, Jaenisch Gambit, and the Grand Prix attack all have in common? Now, if you say that these are openings that I enjoyed and I've covered on my channel, then you'd be right. But underneath all that, each of these openings make use and are defined by an early F-pawn push. So F4 with the white pieces and F5 with black. Now, let me quickly show you what I mean on the board. So a bit of an introduction, let's say with the white pieces, let's say we play F4 first move. Well, that's the bird's opening. Not very common, but let's say more commonly E4, E5, now the F-pawn push. Well, that is the King's Gambit. Vienna Gambit, well, E4, E5, knight C3, knight F6, and now F4. So with each of these openings, bird's opening on move 1, King's Gambit on move 2, and then Vienna Gambit on move 3, they're each defined by this early aggressive F-pawn move. And that was for white. Let's have a look for black. Let me correct that. So if we start with D4 and then immediately play F5 with black pieces, that's the Dutch defense. Let's say we play E4, E5, the knight F3, and now immediately again push F5, that's a Latvian gambit. And let's say instead we play down this line, reload pairs, immediate F5, well, that's the Jaenisch gambit. Dutch defense, F5, yep, Latvian gambit, there we go, Jaenisch gambit, all defined by F5. So I was wondering, as part of something that I was doing, and in fact, I was making, here we go, a poster. You can buy this on my merch store at chessnoob64.com. Create this poster on the King's Pawn opening, the eternal classic. And as I was developing this in the Ponziani, I realized that there were some other F-pawn openings. So let's go back to the analysis board, analysis. So let's play, with white. So here we go, E4, E5, very normal opening. And so the Ponziani now is this move. And I discovered the Ponziani counter gambit, again with that very, very early F-pawn move. And when I looked this up afterwards, because I wasn't familiar with it, I realized it was actually pretty good, quite winning, and potentially a way of playing against the Ponziani, which I am not very good at. So I decided to have a look online. Is there already a collated list of all these F-pawn openings, hopefully gambits, counter gambits, or F-pawn attacks? And I was surprised to discover that nobody had a definitive list. Now, people might have one or two, or maybe even two or three, but definitely not an entire compendium of these openings. And I actually asked the question because the Vienna Gambit is one of my favorite gambits, again defined by F4 on the third move. I wondered just how many of these openings are there? And that sort of led me down a bit of a rabbit hole. Now, as per the title of the video, there are actually 99 of them. Can you believe it? 99. This I'm going to show you how I actually found them, and then we're going to talk about and have a look at how many of these F-pawn openings are actually any good, and are there any sort of themes behind the ones which are good. So I decided to sort of create the compendium, to create the list myself. So first thing I needed was that I needed to find a full list of all chess openings. And I found that on this website. So this is jimmyvermeer.com. It'll be in the description. And this is an absolutely amazing resource. So this person, Jimmy Vermeer, has collated. Let's go all the way down to the bottom. Oh, there we go. There we are. 3,729 openings. That's just absolutely amazing. So 3,729 named openings. Absolutely amazing. So I actually sort of searched through this database to find all instances where white played f4 and black played f5, where that move defined a new or a named opening. And as I said, I found 99 of them, collated them into a spreadsheet, which is available here. So again, this is available for free. So just check out the link again, also in the description. And one of the things I did, so all the data, here we go. So here we are, all of them come sort of listed by white or by black, by the move number. So I only included up to move 6. So on move 7, there are 4 additional openings defined by 7 F4. However, each of those four openings wasn't really in the spirit as the rest of these, because we're sort of kind of too far into the game. And black didn't have any openings defined by 7 F5. So I decided to just keep it to the moves 1 to 6. As you can see, the count 99. And one of the things I also did was that I rated them. So firstly, the evaluation. So that's just Stockfish 16 with the neural network to about a depth of 40. I looked through Lichess at the Lichess database. So 2 ranges, lower rated ELO 400 to 1800 and higher rated ELO 2000 to 2500, looking at the win ratio. So basically the likelihood that white and black will win, and computed a win odds ratio to allow for easier comparison. And well, in terms of where the data actually is, here we go. So to Lichess, so the Lichess database, in the analysis, I included all time controls. And for example, these time controls, ratings, average ratings would be for lower rated. So for example, we can see here, E4, E5, King's Gambit, win ratio, white 53% of the time, black 44% of the time for lower rated. And if I wanted to look at higher rated, then I would just change that over to this. And you can see the King's Gambit is a little bit more even, rather more even at higher levels, but definitely very, very good at lower rated games. So use Lichess to get that data, and if we go all the way back to the beginning, let's see. Here we go, absolutely massive databases. So here, almost 1 billion games for just the high rated games. But lower rated, I think it's over 1 billion. So it really provides a little bit of statistical robustness just with that, those large number of games. And the other thing I did, going back here, is with those win odds ratios, I used a lookup table here. So I'll just show it in large size. Here we are. So I categorize these odd ratios with a qualitative label, just to make it a little bit easier to understand. Now, this is just something as a beginning, need to be viewed with a grain of salt, but potentially it just helps triage and identify the potential lines which are most promising potentially if you want to use it to develop your repertoire. Now with odds ratios, when an odds ratio is 1, it means that there are an equivalent number of wins between white and black. The larger the further away the odds ratio is from 1, the more unequal the win ratios are. When the win odds ratio is larger than 1, then the player, so the person who played the opening was more likely to win. When the odds ratio is less than 1, then the person who played the opening is more likely to lose. And so just the labels. So I said that it's of anything from just a little bit below 1 to about 1.1 is playable, probably okay. Playable maybe, so if there's a little bit of a loss, understanding, a lot of people don't know what they're doing, so you may expect that any opening that you study could potentially be a little bit better than what the statistics might show. But if it's much below that, the opening's probably pretty dubious and maybe even bad if it's really quite poor. On the other hand, once it's sort of above 1.1, above 1.2, they're really quite good. And even the best openings are only around that sort of level, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 win odds ratio. All right, let's go back to the spreadsheet. So this is all the data. Let's have a look first at white, and then let's have a look at black. Now, firstly, when we look at the more, as I said, overall there were 99 named openings. So a lot more than I initially thought, but at the same time, it's sort of creates a certain. It's a bit finite, isn't it? There's not more than 100. It's a graspable number. It's not 1,000. So it sort of sets a certain finite boundary on chess, which I quite like in a way. Now, white had fewer named openings. So out of the 99, had 41. Black had quite a few more. So of the 99, had 58. But on the other hand, you will notice, so the highlighted ones are the ones which I think are quite promising. Now, lower rated, higher rated, I've color coded it. So the deeper the green, potentially, the better it is. And I highlighted the opening if there was at least one good rating on either the lower or higher rated. So obviously if both are rated good or both are rated very good, of which there are some, then that opening is really, really promising in terms of further study and learning. Now you will notice that for white, quite a few of the lines, maybe about half or so, actually are reasonably good, reasonably promising. So for something to be good, the win odds ratio had to be more than 1.1. So definitely you're more likely to win than lose. So that's how I sort of defined it. So quite a few are pretty good. Black, however, even though there are a lot more named openings, much fewer of them are actually good. So definitely quite a bit more than half are not so promising. And in fact, some are, straight up fairly dubious and potentially even probably quite bad. So that was quite interesting to me. White had a lot of, particularly once into move 2, move 3, move 4, a lot of them are gambits. And when you actually look down these lines, the gambits where white makes use of an early attack to potentially try to win initiative by trading a point of material, usually trading away a pawn, especially in sort of the earlier moves. As you get to the later move orders, move 4, 5, and 6, some of these are less gambity and more just part of a opening structure. Particularly white trying to take space in the center, particularly if it's a line where black responded a little bit slowly. So that was quite interesting. Black, on the other hand, because black gets to respond to what does, quite a few more of the responses for black are counter gambits. So where white tries to do something, maybe a gambit, and then black then counter gambit, and potentially this is why some of them are relatively not so good. So counter gambits are usually much riskier, and so if you don't know it well or both sides play it equally well, then it's quite likely that black is not doing so well. However, there are a few openings in black which are a little bit more similar to white, so particularly where white might play a slightly slower opening, where black gets the opportunity to effectively play a gambit, trading material for initiative. And these are the gambits. These are the openings, the named openings in black, so with F5, which are potentially reasonably good. All right, so let's now have a closer deep dive at white. So firstly, there are the usual suspects. There's things that we're not necessarily surprised by. So things like the King's Gambit is quite good at in lower rated games. Still completely playable, very good even at higher rated. Then there is the cluster of the gambits in the Vienna game. So we've got the Omaha Gambit and the two forms of the Vienna Gambit, the Max Lang Vienna Gambit and the Folkbier. They're both quite good. So let's have a very quick look at that. So let me just load that up. And gambits in the Vienna game. So Vienna game of course starts with e4, e5, knight c3. Omaha Gambit is when white plays a d6 against the Vienna, f5. Okay, now we know about the Max Lang Vienna Gambit with the symmetrical knight and then f5, and the Folkbier Vienna Gambit, which is the usual Vienna Gambit. We've got knight f6, f5. So let's have a look. Omaha Gambit, Max Lang Vienna Gambit, Folkbier Vienna Gambit, all defined by f5. They're all quite good. And let's go back to the spreadsheet. And next, there are a cluster of 3-pawn attacks against some of the hyper-modern openings. So the Piet's defense and also the modern defense. So here we have, so modern defense, 3-pawn attack, another form of the modern defense 3-pawn attack. We've got the Piet's defense, the Austrian attack, which is a 3-pawn attack. We also have the King's Indian defense. In this one, we've got a 4-pawn variant of that. Oh, let's go take a look. So here we are. So if we start initially with the Piet's defense, then take the full center. Here we go. They develop a knight, and we develop our knight. Here we've got the g6, potentially fianchetto the bishop, and now we've got the f4. So this is the Piet's defense mainline Austrian attack. Now let's have a look at the modern defense. So modern defense, of course, we start with g6 first. Take the full center, knight develops, other knight, fianchettos, 3-pawn attack. And the last one, sorry, 1d4, that's right. Start, and then they develop this knight. Here we go. So the idea here is to take that. That pawn comes out to g6, knight, fianchetto bishop, so King's Indian defense. We take the full center now, and now the 4th pawn. King's Indian defense, 4-pawn attack. Let's have a look again. So Piet's defense, Austrian attack, f4. We've got one form of the modern defense. Here we go. So again, very similar structure. And then the King Indian's defense, 4-pawn attack, again, very similar structure. And each of these are actually quite good. So very, very interesting. And now for white, there are a couple of other quite interesting things. So let's go back. So here we've got an interesting defense against the French defense. Again, potentially quite good. Good, very good. And this is the Tarrasch closed version, the pawn center variation. Let's go have a look. And I found this really interesting because I'm just not so good with the French defense. So let's have a look at that. e4, e6, d4, d5. Now knight here, so knight to d2. Expected, they're going to try to potentially double attack the knight. That's defended. Now we advance the pawn. Knight closes over, and now f4. f4. So very, very interesting. So this is, a very, very solid response to the French, and apparently quite good. So I think I'm going to give that a try. Another interesting response that involves f4 is in the Caracan defense, the Marozzi attack. So let's have a look at that. Let me load that up. Here we go. So it starts off basically with the main line, e4, c6, d4, d5, the knight. So this is main line. We're going to take a bishop out. Again, very, very normal. And here we switch the knight over to knight g3, attacking the bishop. If it goes this way, we now play f4. And potentially this bishop can get trapped. And so effectively we're winning some tempo. And this response is again very good. Look at that win ratio for higher rated games. So win odds ratio of 1.26. So that's really, really quite good. Let's have a look now at black. And unfortunately with black, many of the gambits simply aren't great. However, there are a few. So we think of sort of responses. So we've seen the Ponziani counter gambit already, but there are a number of gambits that black can play, which is really responses against the king's pawn opening and then the king's knight variation. So be 1 e4, e5, knight f3. So here that's we've got the Ruy Lopez, we've got the Jaenisch gambit, Italian game, the Russo gambit, and yes, that's right. And against, of course, I just mentioned before, against the Ponziani, we've got the Ponziani counter gambit. So very, very quick squiz. So e4, e5, knight f3. And if, so let's look from black. So if white plays an Italian, then that is the Russo gambit. If, however, they play the Ruy Lopez, here we've got the Jaenisch gambit, and we already saw earlier if they play Ponziani, we've got the Ponziani counter gambit. So the Italian Russo gambit, the Ruy Lopez, the Jaenisch gambit, and the Ponziani counter gambit against the Ponziani. So all three in this setup is quite good, and the idea is inviting the take and then pushing to attack that knight. So very, very similar structure. Interesting with the Jaenisch gambit, so the f5 attack against the Ruy Lopez, this can be potentially delayed, so it doesn't have to be played right away. So after a number of one or two other moves, often f5 can still be played, and those variants have various names. Some of them are okay as well. Now I'm going to show you one other good line in black, which is against the center game. So this is, here we go. Oh, where are we? This one, center game accepted, Paulson attack. It's the LeMay variation. So here. Again, center game often can be quite tricky. I don't necessarily do so well against it. So e4, e5, now d4. We accept, take, queen takes, knight out, all very normal. The Paulson attack is where queen goes to e3 and f5. Apparently, that is quite a tricky line against the center game, and apparently quite good. One of the few good f5 gambits, f5 openings. So very, very interesting. One of the other ones, look, now I've shown before the Bardeleben variation. This is again one of the best in here we go, the Bardeleben variation in the Vienna game main line. Does a little bit better at lower rated games. I've done a video on this before. It's basically what I use when I play against the Vienna, drawing the opponent into the main line, and then the Bardeleben is basically like a anti-main line, especially if they play another Paulson attack, actually. So e4, e5, knight c3. So white is playing the Vienna. We develop this knight. We're trying to bait the Vienna gambit, and then main line. Forces the game down into a tunnel, only pretty much one good move. Captures. Most common move, best move for white is the Paulson attack. It's a different Paulson attack. Queen to f3, and then the Bardeleben variation, immediate f5, bolstering the center. And you will notice here it's less of a gambit and really more of a opening structure now as we're moving into move 5. I'm going to show just one more sort of a funny sort of thing. So this is the Paris Gambit. So I'm going to go back to white. So this is sort of these some funny things which I sort of discovered in my list. Amma opening, Paris Gambit, dubious at lower rated, but very good at higher rated. And there's been thousands of games this. Look at this, win odds ratio 1.26, and it starts with knight to h3. So there is no business with this opening being particularly successful. So Amma opening knight h3, looks like a straight up mistake. Very sensible, d5, g3, e5, and now the f4. This is apparently winning at high, for people playing at a high level, high rated players. Very, very fascinating. One of the worst openings in the list is kind of a meme opening, I think, is the Coca-Cola Gambit in the double grob. So let's have a look at that. So let me just do Control C. Let's have a look at analysis. I'll just paste this here. Coca-Cola opening. So grob first starts with a G4, other G4, the double grob, and now F4 Coca-Cola Gambit. Absolutely glorious in my view. All right, so some very, very sort of interesting openings here. There's some other sort of odd sort of themes which have come up a little bit. So there's a bit of an avian theme. So look at this, birds opening, the canard variation. I think there's a few others. There's a pelican variation. Here we go, pelican variation. And then there's also the double duck. That might be in black somewhere. Here we go, the double duck formation. So a bit of an avian sort of theme in some of the names. And there's also a bit of an American theme as well. So Massachusetts defense, so that's a bit interesting. There's a Colorado counter gambit. Oh, here we go, Colorado counter gambit. We've got the Brooklyn variation, Everglades variation in the Aliekans defense. And of course, in white, we have the Omaha Gambit as well. So a bit of an American theme. Look, make use of this resource, have a look at it, explore it, have a think about, look, how you might be able to incorporate some of these lines in your own repertoire or give it a go. And send me a comment, leave me a message on what you found and what you think. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.